I think that we're putting the cart before the horse because it's not before the board. And the problem is, we don't have authority. I wrote them up and said that they're exceeding it, I have to notify the Cannabis Control Commission, which has total control. The board has limited rights as a DPH, that was taken away from the Department of Public Health and given to a Cannabis Control Commission. We're allowed to, certainly, we adopted regulations that if I felt there was an egregious odor, that there was a malfunction of the system, then I would write it up. But even that, look at, they've been writing up the landfill for what, 10 years now for odors, maybe longer, and 2 weeks before they close, we finally get a letter. So, what's it, it's a $25 fine for a violation of an odor complaint. If it got to the point where we'd have a hearing before the board, I'm not sure how much, we'd have to notify the Cannabis Control Commission also, because they have full authority over that site. We hold a license that we told anyone that would have, but this was for the retail sale. This is a growing application, so we have an agreement that they're gonna have to get a permit for the retail sale and for medical, which is at the end of the street. We have nothing before us. I don't even know if VGG even has a host agreement. Nothing's been, and I'm the chairman of the Marijuana Advisory Committee. I'm not sure what it is. I know that today they did ask us to come down. They're trying to be proactive, as Kathleen said, to really, but I think it's the planning board's purview to set these according to our regulations, to the state regulations, but you can't, if they make it more strict, we don't have regulations within the board that would allow us to go beyond the state regulation. But certainly, we have a right to, the nuisance complaint for noise and odor would come to this department.
And I want VGG, I want the town, I want the planning board to know that if the odor is even half as bad, heck, not even half as bad, if it's bad.
If it's that bad, that would be.
Three schools within a mile downwind of there. You got residences that are like Mr. Russell, who are next door. And in my mind, there's no way in heck that they should have to deal with, and we got an email from somebody who seemed pretty credible who was involved with a much smaller cultivation facility, under 10,000 square feet. And he said the odors next door to this, and I'm assuming this was an indoor facility.
They're all have to be indoor.
It smelled like a skunk. So,
Just to, through the chair,
Yes.
just to further elaborate on where I was going.
Yep.
I wasn't suggesting that we take any action against, or take any, or limit them in any way. What I was suggesting is that we get in touch with them and ask them, I personally want to get reassured. I want reassurance, some concrete reassurance from them before the fact that there's not going to be odor, that there's not going to be noise, that there's not going to be a compost issue. And that's the reassurance that I don't know if the planning board can get that from them, but I think that that's something that we can legitimately ask for.
That's what the planning board's purview is all these issues. That's why they met today. My
Right.
concern was odor, my concern was compost, my concern was soils, water, what are they gonna do with excessive water runoff? All those issues need to be answered.
And you mentioned noise too.
Noise, everything. Traffic is not the purview of the Board of Health, but certainly noise issue that would come from traffic may be result, but anything complaint that's issued. But I think Graves Engineering has already asked and they've not received yet. So we will have another meeting, and certainly the Marijuana Advisory Committee, I can ask any board member to attend. We have a meeting coming up the second week of November, which BGG will be here and Green Gold Growers will be here, along with our committee.
Okay.
It's really just an advisory committee. We don't vote on anything, but we discuss, and certainly if anyone's welcome to come to, if you have questions at that, then you can bring it. But Graves Engineering is still requested and reviewing all of these issues that you discussed, and the planning board has made no decision. So, and that's what we discussed today. I said, well, I'm worried about what's the existing well. What about the detention pond they had there with water? That's being eliminated and it's allowed. The protection for stormwater, which Todd talked about. I talked about the nuisance odors that we may get from odors. So they're waiting to hear back, so Graves Engineering will send our report for me to review, and the board can get a copy of it, that they're in compliance, and this is what their plan is. To say that they're already gonna be a nuisance without really, they're not
I'm
even
not
built
saying
yet.
that they're gonna be a nuisance, and I don't know that they're gonna be a nuisance.
You're right, and it's the planning board's due diligence to make sure that that plan meets Graves Engineering, so they can either vote it, which I'm not sure where it is. I don't go to the planning board meetings. I went today because they requested department heads to go, to air out, to make sure that any issues that are under the authority of the local board of health, meaning you three members, and me as the health director, I told them that we need to make sure that all these issues are addressed. And she wrote them all down, and I'm sorry, but I forget her name. She's the chairman of the planning board.
Yeah, I know.
She seems to be very sincere and wants to do the right thing.
Patsy.
Okay, that's right. But now that all these questions that we had are before her, and she's going to send them off to Graves Engineering to make sure that they just don't say they're going to do them, but they need something, a plan, and they don't have that yet.
My
They have some of
concern,
it.
my concern is that if we are silent, and let's say that VGG goes ahead and you've got a 50, 60 acre indoor greenhouse, and they've said, well, we're putting in state-of-the-art HEPA filters, so there shouldn't be any odors downstream. It's gonna be like the landfill, where you've got somebody who's invested millions of dollars, and then suddenly it's a nuisance, and good luck trying to shut them down, or maybe there's no way to mitigate it, I don't know. But I do wanna make sure that people are looking hard at this.
Well, I did do a slideshow presentation at the library. I think Kathleen, you were there.
Yep.
On the rules and regulations that are, the authority this board has. And part of it is that they can only have 100,000 square feet and 2.3 acres per license. This is 860 something thousand on, what, 95 acres, or I'm not sure, I don't know the exact acreage. But certainly that is something that I brought up, but it goes before the Cannabis Control Commission, I guess. I don't know, this is certain questions that I brought before the planning board, that under the regulations set forth by the Cannabis Control Commission, it's regulated at 100,000 square feet and 2.3 acres. This is a lot larger than that, so I'm not sure how they get around that, and that's one of the questions I brought up today.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
clearly there are a lot of issues. What I'm looking for is, from Board of Health, is clarity for residents and taxpayers on Old Worcester Road and beyond as to when and if issues arise regarding odor, noise, composting, arsenic in the soil. Because the current plan from the company is to shave off 25 feet on top of the hill, go down 25 feet, and spread all of that soil around the property so it then is plateaued, and they can build on that. The problem with that is there is documented arsenic in the soil. Very limited testing that has been done, but the tests that have shown that have been done, 3 test bores, 2 inches, down about 1 or 2 feet, shows concentrations of arsenic. And there's historical data on arsenic at apple orchards because that had been the pesticide of choice. So that's there. Even their engineers indicated that it is not a buildable property for housing. It has to be mitigated. Mitigating soil with arsenic in it is very, very expensive. Our concern is, once that soil is plowed, plateaued, it can become airborne with wind. It can also become a hazard for wetlands with runoff.
Or hazards to the well.
Or hazards to the well. So there's a lot to be concerned about, and I'm looking for, from the Board of Health, Mr. Chairman, some clarity as to what the Board of Health's purview is. What can the Board of Health do if we're presented with these issues? And prior to construction, can the Board of Health take any affirmative action which would place conditions on the developer? I understand the role of the planning board, but I'm curious, as you have an autonomous authority here in the town to protect the health of residents, and I'm just curious what the board can do. Clarity with regard to legally what the Board of Health can require of this developer. And maybe the health director could research this. I don't think everything is under the control of the Cannabis Control Commission. Cannabis Control Commission has delegated a tremendous amount of authority to local boards. And I would think that dealing with the health issues, the Board of Health, maybe you could seek authority or seek guidance from the State Department of Public Health with regard to this.
Yes.
I did seek that, and that this presentation was from the senior staff attorney directly as a result of what authority do the local boards of health have, and I gave that a presentation at the library and I can send it forward to everyone. This is from the attorney saying this is what you can do, this is what the board's authority under this, and what the control of the Cannabis Control Commission, and what the local board of health can do.
Mr. Chairman, that would be great information to share with residents, because I know I live on Worcester Road, and folks are concerned about these issues, and if they knew what their options were, that could be helpful.
Well, there were a lot of them there at that meeting that night.
Can you just leave your email address with Jim?
Yeah, I'll forward
And
you.
feel free to, because we can send it to you and share it with the other residents.
And Mr. Chairman, I go by the motto, it's not who it is, what it is. If somehow this gets approved, I think with a strict oversight, the board would, whatever we've adopted, and that's what we are limited to adopt, and I can certainly send that to you, is that anytime anyone has a problem, I always respond, whether it's noise, odor, whatever, and I look at it is it justified, and I don't care who it is or what it is, but it hasn't even, I know that the planning board's trying to do the right thing right now. The problem is the host agreement doesn't come before the board, host agreement comes before the selectmen, and at that point in time, once the host agreement is there, I don't even know about it until it's handed to me that they're now having a host agreement with the town. So I'm not asked my opinion, I don't think they've ever asked if I agree or anything. The host agreement is between the selectmen and the person who applies for that, and they set certain things up. I think that the misconception is that anyone or the board has anything to do with it at this point in time. I think, yes, we should do our due diligence, which I've tried to do educational things at the library to show what the authority of the board is, but certainly if there's ever a complaint, if this does ever go through, I will be the one to respond and make sure, and I would bring it before the board to revoke any kind of license or any authority we had to say, hey, they violated that, just like with the one that's going down the street. He knows, Mr. McMahon, that if there's any violation of that certainly this board would revoke that license to operate.
Good, and I think that's what we need to make crystal clear, and that's why I want to make sure that the planning board, because I haven't been going to meetings, and I realize we're.
They have one
way
tomorrow night,
down the
which
road, but-
I probably, if the board wants, I can go to Shore to make sure that the board is concerned that all these issues that we discussed at today's meeting are sent forward to Graves Engineering.
I would absolutely agree that we should, and make sure that they're doing their due diligence, and they're just not saying, well, we'll let the Board of Health take care
No,
of that.
I think
if
that
and
the
when.
chairman, who I met with today, is really concerned, and she's being over diligent and absolutely aware of the complexities of this, being something different that's new,
Right.
and she wants to make a right informed decision, but there's so much more information they requested they have not received for their engineer to even look at, that it's a ways away.
Okay.
Thank you, again, just to reiterate, I'm just interested in what the Board of Health can do and is authorized to do under the law. So
Well, I
that's
think
basically what I'm looking
It's definitely odor and noise for sure.
Odor, noise, water, any contamination, anything that would interfere with your right for a peaceful existence. You said you're in a butter. All of a sudden, there's this tremendous smell and noise. Like Matt said, Mr. Geiger here, the landfill's been a problem, but the problem is, it's not in our town, so it's not, if these three members had authority to say, we want to do something, they would try and shut that landfill down and make sure there's cover. I think that I've met with Andy Pelletier in Southbridge, that's an issue, but this board has always been for, making sure, and I'm the same way. If there's a problem that's affecting the residents, we have to be on it.
Good to know, but this is going to be in your town, so.
Yep.
That's a big plus.
It is.
And that makes me feel better, not that it's necessarily next to you, but the fact that we would have some
It
oversight.
may be in this town, it has not been.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to say it out loud, probably for the record. This board does a good job, in my opinion. And we do the very best that we can on every situation that comes. But we don't have a magic wand, and we're not able to stop or to do certain things. You talked about the arsenic in the ground. Charlton is known for high arsenic. They're blowing in solar farms all over this place, cutting down 25 feet here, 25 feet there. And it's happening. So to think the Board of Health has the authority because of the arsenic, I'm not saying we do, I'm not saying we don't, but I don't want, we may not have that authority to stop the development of that facility, is what I'm getting at. It's not that easy for us to say, there's arsenic there. Now, the point that you made was it was a pre-existing apple orchard, and maybe the pesticides are an exceedance to the rest of it. I don't know how it would ever be proved. I don't know if there's a program out there, such as a 21E, or a program that could say, this specific site has additional contaminants because of the apple orchard, and then we can get onto a contamination side. But, you know, I've been through it a few times, and I just we do the best we can, and we always have, but some of these things and some of the items that you're talking about, I don't think that we're gonna be able to control. And I just wanna say it right up front, because we've had other developmental issues that have come to this town, and this board has sat here and taken it from the residents, if you will, and it was out of our control to begin with. So I certainly hear your concerns and would do everything I can, but I can't promise the world, if you will, and I mean it with all due respect. I'm just letting you know up front, this board is limited to what we can do, and so.
And can I just add to that, just
Sure.
as Matt's talking, I'm thinking about, you know, the town doesn't have odor and noise regulations. The state does, right?
We adopted those, yes.
We adopted
We
what the
enforce
state
the
does,
state.
so we enforce the state. So we don't have anything more stringent than what's already a state requirement. So I just want to mention that too.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. Again, just to clarify, I'm looking for clarification on what is in the purview of the Board of Health,
Right.
what the board can do, what the health agent can do, and what you cannot do. I'm not asking you to stop or shut down anything. I'm basically seeking information from the board as to what your right is and what our options are with regard to what our rights are under state law. It's just a fact-finding mission here, simply that.
Yep, yes.
And I will send you the arsenic vein that, I think was from Sanborn Head or Kleinfelder, that arsenic vein, all of Charlton and all of central
99%,
Massachusetts is 99% covered in arsenic.
I'm aware of that. I have arsenic in my well. The source of it, who knows? I understand that vein goes through
Yeah.
central
Yeah.
Massachusetts. I'm aware of that. That's naturally occurring.
Exactly.
What
Yep.
is put in the ground from spraying from pesticides, that's historical from decades ago. That's a different issue. So we shouldn't combine or rather confuse the two, but there are two issues there.
I think there is a 21E being done for my meeting today, and Todd reviewed all the stormwater management and all that, and he has not concluded with his findings. As far as the information, was a lot of information. That he had certainly some questions about, they put like small dog houses that they pump out to make sure that the water and the sand is collected on site, and he's still reviewing that. So that information has come through, and Todd's looking at it. So, and that's under his.
If I could just, Mr. Jordan had this.
I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, that 10 years ago, we were given all kinds of assurances that there'd be no odors, there'd be no noise issues with the landfill. We asked the DEP constantly, shut them down until they address the issues, which they've never done. Fines are kind of laughable to a multi-million-dollar company. I would strongly suggest, if it's possible, to put anything into your moving forward permits or anything like that that says if there are odor and noise complaints generated at the facility, you'll be shut down until they're addressed. The only thing they understand is you stopping them from making money.
I agree.
That's it.
Yep, I agree. And that's why I brought this thing up, and I swear I saw it in the paper. It was part of the town meeting where they were saying, and this was a proposal that odors would not be detected beyond the property of BGG at the apple orchard.
And that, Mr. Chairman, that is in our regulations that were drafted as a as a kind of a mark for the state from Cheryl Sabara, that odors will be controlled and on-site and not the least site, I believe. And I can send that to you, but that's something that gives us authority that if there is, you know, exceedance of odors out beyond that area, that I think we'll have to start developing a log sheet. And if there is any complaints, we're developing in this office a different complaint log sheet that we keep, not for just for VGG, but any kind of odor or nuisance complaint, we're developing a form for that. So it's easier for the board for me to email it to you or send it to you, that I did respond to a complaint, so you know about it right away, and there was an odor complaint, and that you would know about it.
Jim, let me get this straight though,
I'm just gonna post that when you're.
because,
I'll get it for you.
Just, no, I'm not, sit down, sit down.
Jim, let me get this straight though, because a log and a complaint hotline and all that,
Yep.
it does nothing.
It does nothing.
Doesn't help the odor, it doesn't help the noise or the nuisance. So, I'm not a big fan of these logs because it's like, okay, there was 5 or 50 or 500, still smells, bottom line. So, what mechanism can this board do to actually say, and let me hear what you're saying. You're saying this board might not be able to control it, that it would go through the Cannabis Control Commission?
I think, like anything, you'd have to base your findings for closure on law. You have to say, under, you know, chapter 111, section 120A, we hereby close you for exceedances of a right for peaceful existence for said home. Reason, excessive odors. But in the bylaws state that you can only give a $25 fine, and you can request a hearing before the board. The problem is, if you're gonna take away someone's livelihood and cause a manifest injustice, you better make sure that it is justifiable. That means when I go out there, I would say it is beyond reasonable doubt that there is a severe odor. You need to find the cause and allow them to fix that.
Did we, sorry, Mr. Chairman,
Oh, that's fine.
cutting in. We made other marijuana facilities get a permit from this Board of Health.
They will all have to get permits.
So,
For retail, and we didn't do for growers, we gave it because it became retail food. They're selling medical, which is in the
Food.
control of food. This, I assume, I'm not sure if there's gonna be retail, I don't know the whole thing, but from what I understand, it's a growing facility and medical research. There's no sales going on there directly to the retail, so it's not a retail establishment, which really defines that you don't give a license to someone who's a grower. We gave a license to Green, which was health-wise, now it's Green Gold Growers, because they're selling brownies, they're selling gummy bears, they're selling pizza dough. So that's why we have to give a permit.
okay, so how about the factory that we have in this town that does scientific research down on Route 30?
Yeah.
Okay, that's closed to retail. This board oversees that?
It's overseen by the federal government. But I do inspections on there, and I've just dealt with them recently, Tom, their engineer, as far as their agricultural waste.
So if you saw something that you didn't think was acceptable there, what's this board's authority to correct it? Ask them nicely and hope they do?
Well, the board's, under the authority that would be given is, like, there is a difference between a wholesale, a federal permit, and a local authority permit. The pharmaceutical is they're federally inspected, so they have to follow federal.
So they're under that.
But they're also in the local jurisdiction for, you know, they take a truck from Helgeson, they drive into a field, and they're spraying the field. They have a federal agricultural permit to do that. But under the local, when someone complains that truck was at his house 2 weeks ago, which he did, that they're spraying a field, he had concerns as well. So I did an investigation and put a stop on it. Because they did have a permit, really didn't have authority, but he said he would stop. It's because it's considered ag waste, and it's totally, they have a permit from the Department of Agriculture to spray it onto fields. It's called rabbit waste. So that's what they do. But perception is, you see Helgeson truck, you think the guy's dumping it,
Doing human waste.
human waste. And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't know anything about it. So we have now LFB is gonna be more upfront. That truck is gonna be labeled agricultural waste. It's only gonna be used because you can have up to 10% of human waste in that truck. Any more than that, who's gonna know?
Right.
And you can't spray it on a field.
Yeah, who's gonna take a test?
So this gentleman came in and was concerned, and so I said, I had a meeting with Helgerson and Tom Smith from LFB. And we sat down and we had a discussion about, and listen, perception is one thing. I have a complaint, I act on any complaint that comes in this office,
Yeah.
and I follow through on it. And I said, well, you can't, the perception is this gentleman is an abutter.
Mhm.
He sees Henderson parked in the field,
Rightfully
open
so,
valve,
yeah.
and free dumping. What is he supposed to think? You did not properly label the truck.
Mhm.
You did not properly inform the abutters that, hey, this is agricultural waste. We're gonna let you know we're here, so don't be alarmed. It has no risk to your well, and we are permitted. So that's what they're working on.
I guess the big question that I have is, how can this board stop it? If it stinks and stinks and continues to stink, because I don't know, I've never been, I heard this place was gonna be huge. I can tell you marijuana stinks, and I can't imagine how they have a magic wand to make that smell go away.
And that's what I wanna have, and before I forget, I wanna interject here. There was, a food reclamation composting facility in Northborough that was just shut down.
Yep.
Their permit was revoked because they said the odors were injurious to the abutters repeatedly. And they warned this guy, and they warned this guy, and they warned this guy. It's a big, huge operation. It's in your newspaper. You probably know what I'm talking about. And that is the way.
A Charlton resident shut them down. Her name was Jamie Terry. She was the health agent.
In
for-
Northborough?
In Northborough, yes. That was because of numerous complaints,
Right.
no proper permits, they considered they were agricultural, the renderers just came in, which we have rendering happening in Charlton every
But
week.
you don't have
But
100
the-
complaints every week.
No, but the odors were is because it wasn't properly permitted from the beginning.
Okay.
And I think that's what happened, and there was so many, but that is a process as a legal, you'd have to get an attorney involved for this board if you ever decided that it got to the point where you're gonna shut a business down and take away their livelihood, you better make sure you're doing it right, and that's when you'd have to get an attorney involved for the board. And, because if you have a right to fine, you have a right to, take away license, but we do not have control over agricultural. And they may change the marijuana to agricultural. Right now, it's not deemed agricultural. The plants themselves are not agricultural.
They're, what, medicinal?
They're just not deemed
Crop.
as crop, they're not considered even that, it's not
It's gotta
agricultural.
be.
That's what I said, but, you
The
could.
2016, yeah, 2016 state law
Yep.
deemed marijuana not agricultural
Yep,
per state law.
yep. So, listen, I learned a lot myself, but I certainly want to get as much information as I can. I went to that meeting today to make sure I gave the input of the concerns. It was a last minute thing, they said, come on down. I said, we're concerned, arsenic in the well, we're concerned, did you do a 21E site assessment? What about the filtration of an indoor? What about stormwater, the rain that you're gonna be recycling? What about, what are you gonna do with the water? They're supposed to reuse all that, but that's part of the plan that's going to Graves Engineering, but at least they listen to the concerns, and if I encourage the board, if you have any other questions, when I attend these meetings, if something comes up, I would certainly wanna bring them forward to the planning board, because they're trying to be proactive and make sure all these questions
All
are
right,
answered.
so I've got a question. Was
Yeah.
composting brought up specifically?
Composting is going to be part of the study by Graves Engineering.
All right, because if
Yeah.
you've got 40, 50, 60 acres, there's an awful lot of,
If you see the
stalks
site
and
plan,
everything
there
else.
is no available space. It's all building.
It's all interior.
Yep.
It's all interior,
All
so
interior.
even if they do that inside, I don't care how big your HEPA filter systems are, even if they're, 5 acres, 10 acres, all enclosed. To me, I don't see it, especially with what I'm hearing in California. This is not inside cultivation, but outside. They said area residents downwind have to put in towels under their doors and keep their windows shut to keep the stench out of their houses.
Well, as a committee, I think that the deputy chief has asked that him and myself and one other member actually go to Colorado. One of my best friends lives in Colorado. We want to go to one of the major facilities, because the question is now, because of the size of the facility, does it have to be sprinkled? And that's a question by the fire department for access. It's a very large building. They're going to have town water, town sewer, so that's an issue that's gone away. But the question is that facility going to cause any other issues? And we don't know. This is something new to Charlton, so we're trying to do our best. I did call my friend who lives in Colorado. He said, Jim, the smell is not from the growers, it's from the people walking the streets, because they can smoke openly. So it's everywhere. And he lives in downtown Colorado. And he's a former resident from this area, and he said that It's just the norm now. It's like someone smoking a cigarette, it's allowed everywhere. He said, you couldn't tell, he said the major, huge facilities are so far out
Well,
that.
that's the issue, because
Right.
I lived in Colorado for 5
They
years.
made them put them out in the middle of
Yeah, and
nowhere.
you only have to go 5 miles from downtown
Exactly.
Denver. You get down south up there towards Phipps Ranch, and you can get to development, and all of a sudden, it's just like 5 miles of just prairie.
Wait till they approve all these smoke shops to allow smoking in there for marijuana. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, I think it's a big difference between, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm
No.
just saying.
Charlton's a little
for-
different, it's more
for-
rural.
For Old Worcester Road, with the residents that are there, and of course, the other concern would be downwind school. And I'm gonna say it again, these people are gonna put in tens of millions of dollars into the facility, kinda like Casella Waste System, you know, they go and they do all this, and then suddenly, you know, it's gonna take an act of Congress to shut them down, and I don't want that to
I
happen.
don't, I'm here on behalf of the board, I don't have a vested interest, I'm not, I do not live in the town of Charlton, but I do enforce the laws, and I understand that the abutters are concerned. I'm concerned too,
Okay.
as the board should be. So I don't form an opinion, I said this at the meeting openly into the paper. I'm not a pro-con, I'm here to enforce the laws as written and accepted by the town of Charlton, by the Board of Health. 'Cause
I
I'm an
just
extension of-
wanna make sure that we do whatever we can to assist the planning board to put in whatever stipulations and conditions
Yep.
that are adhered to, and it clearly spelled out, if these conditions are not met, boom, and then state it, whatever.
To be honest, I'm not even sure if it's gonna pass the planning board.
Okay.
So-
All right. I know we're jumping ahead, but Mr.
Yeah.
Russell has some very
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
serious
I
concerns.
appreciate your explanation, and Mr. Chairman, it won't be necessary for anybody to go to Colorado. All you have to do is go down to Worcester on, it's the southwest cutoff, Route 20, at the intersection of Route 20 and 122, Grafton Street.
No, it's because Colorado mandates sprinklers, that's why.
Yeah, that's an indoor grow facility. It's not a greenhouse, it's a grow facility.
Route 20 and 122.
2122, that's the building, and if you go
I
to,
see.
it depends upon the things, depends upon which way the wind is blowing, but you get the stench from the marijuana, and this is just a few thousand square feet.
7,500,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's a small amount of space where they have
Right.
plants inside, and you even see various pipes, PCV pipes dripping on the outside, because marijuana plants sweat excessively,
Right.
and they have to get rid of the.
I didn't know that until the email that was shared, and.
Permit actually.
I did see that.
Yes.
So, it's a small operation, it's in Worcester, and drive by and you can take a whiff.
Have you gone to the planning board with your concerns, specifically this concern and some of your other concerns?
Well, coming up Wednesday will be the traffic issue discussed.
So they're segmenting it.
It is
Yes,
segmented.
Traffic, and groundwater, and so.
Tomorrow night's traffic specifically.
Stormwater management, okay, all right,
So it's kind of a hodgepodge last week.
okay.
Traffic is coming Wednesday, and then they have to take a vote by, I believe it's December 4th. So there'll be several more sessions, but the timeline is pretty strict, and the magnitude of the review that they're going to be required to do is frankly overwhelming.
Would we get in trouble if we go and, I mean, as a
You
singular
know, if there's a
person?
posted meeting, I'm not sure, I have to check.
If you go, just through the chair, if
Yeah.
you go, and you're just going for informational purposes with your own, you're not necessarily talking
Yeah,
to
meeting
each other.
isn't- yeah.
You're not meeting, you're just going to get
Like the
information.
selectmen have a meeting, and go with information as a resident, so.
Well, the problem is that once I get talking, I get myself into trouble,
Well,
so.
you can talk for yourself.
I can talk for myself and
Sure.
reiterate what
And you
Mr.
can-
Russell.
And you can make it clear you're not speaking
Yes.
to the board.
Yeah,
know?
yes, Jim.
And I think in our discussion, I forgot to bring up that the abutter is considered 1,000 feet away.
1,000 feet, all right. Mr. Russell, how far are you from the border of the property?
Well, I'm right across the street, so the property line probably 75 feet.
And certainly not probably much farther than that if they're putting that big of a greenhouse facility. And these are gonna be 30 feet high at their height?
Well, I would contend they're not greenhouses, they're grow houses.
Right.
The greenhouse, by their definition, is an exchange of air. Well, there should be no exchange of air with these grow houses.
Right.
They're black, you can't see in them, the light can't escape, because that's, from what I
Yeah.
understand from my meetings, that You won't
special
see.
grow lights, yeah, and that would be, light pollution, really, to the, I mean, if you're talking 20, 30, 50 acres of special grow lights 24/7.
They will not, no light, they were sure, no light, well, this is what they said, no light will leave, because light leaving is money lost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.
Russell,
Russell. If
if
you
you-
do have any questions, concerns, also please leave
I'll
your
give you my card if you
email
want to
address.
send me an email, I can email you.
Perfect. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So,
Kathleen, yes.
well, we just have to go over.
Oh, yes.
The settlement agreement.
Here you go.
which
Yeah,
is,
I'll send you as much.
I can start really
All right, have a good
quickly,
night.
because I was involved.
Can you just give a quick background, because